I'll get here, but like when you don't realize how much meat you have back here, and you're like,
you're right. I don't realize it's a lot of meat. I've been in the gym, girl. I fucked that up.
That was soft. This is soft. This is how you slap. Like that. Cut.
They're ready now. What up, YouTube? I am your host, Mediocre Tutorials and Reviews, back in here with yet one more video. Felicia.
Yeah, what's up,
Say
man?
what up?
What's up, YouTube?
Listen, you have some contact information, right? Before we get
The contact
that I'm doing, right? So you got a website, you want to shout that out?
Yes, I do. I also go by FDZ, as in FDZ Graffiti, and you can find me at www.fdzgraffiti.com. I'll spell that out for you. It's FDZ Graffiti with 2 F's and 1 T.com. Thank you very much. Same on Instagram, so holla at your girl.
That you have an underscore on Instagram, though.
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Got it. Okay. Listen, we got to get this video started. The Thought Retirement Plan. I just had this suggested by actually one of my women subscribers. Shout out to Marie Pieri.
It sounds awesome.
So we're gonna react to this. I haven't heard about Black Ram ever, so this is
session. Today's topic and title is the Thought Retirement Plan. Many companies offer their employees a plan in which they could put aside money for 20, 30, and sometimes 40 plus years, a savings, if you will, one in which would allow them to receive a paycheck well after their working days are over, a retirement plan. And any company worth its weight would definitely have one for its employees. But I'm here to say that the Thought is provided the same benefit, introducing her strategy, a Thought strategy, taught to her by her mama, who says,
"Girl, how do you know what you like if you only just deal with one guy? You
riding the Hennessy, drinking with the cat stinking." Now, the average succubus, she starts to date, in quotes, in high school, and she loses the V to the first boyfriend and then breaks up with him and dates 2 to 3 guys afterwards. And by the time the prom rolls around, she has a whole new dude. And of course, after the prom, she promptly gets rid of him when the college semester begins. So by 18, she goes to college, rides the carousel, and she does it all here. She gains her experience, and it's here where she turns pro. Now, this puts between 5 to 10 bodies or more on her during this time, moderately speaking. After college graduation in her early 20s, she's heavily into the club scene. At this point in time, she's riding the carousel very hard, no pun intended. She's in the party life, having her fun while she's young, just like mama said. And here is where the one-nighters and all of the depravity occurs. Here, it's a free fall of about 10 or more bodies, moderately speaking. By age 27, she's still dating, racking up many bodies here in the process.
what's up?
Okay. Everything that he's describing right now, and he says, like mama said, is exactly what fathers tell their sons to do when they're young. So I'm just kind of like losing faith at this point, because it's like describing, okay, so she did all of these things in high school and she's having her fun like her mom said, but I just feel like there's a tone where he's speaking negatively to it.
I disagree with you, but let me offer a contrary point to that. I think, and what he's going to be getting at is, but what's the goal of you doing that? dudes can go their entire life and their sperm still be active. Women definitely. So she's riding the carousel. You know what that means? The cock carousel. Are you familiar with that term?
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I picked it up from YouTube, from the internet.
Okay.
So anyway, so she's riding that, but in that time, she's wasting time with getting married,
right,
towards finding a good dude with good morals, good values, good integrity to grow old with. So what happens is that happens in the 20s, 30s come, and let's say 35ish, and the things that are valued amongst men start to decline in that young lady, right? Because men are much more visual. They look at aesthetics, which is why you see like a Diddy dating a Lori Harvey, because he has the ability to go back 20 something, 30 something years in order to grab a baddie because he's a billionaire like that, right? So I think what he's saying that are planning on getting married, because as you're riding all of these carousels, you might be
pool of our society,
yeah,
right? We're talking about like within our urban community. I'm not just gonna say black community, within the urban community.
Yeah.
If it is frowned upon for women to behave this way, but it is encouraged for young men to behave this way, what is this woman supposed to do?
So I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
I think that telling a young man to do this is also, like, I think young men should be taught to focus on improving every aspect of themselves in their lives. Mm-hmm. A component of that might be dating, but I think what happens is they focus so much on it, and then they become the dudes that can't go out with their guy friends without having some focus on some woman, right? Like, mm-hmm, they just can't have fun with themselves. Right, and then they start focusing on and understanding that women value money, they value things, right? So instead of focusing on what can you do within your purpose and your passion to improve your financial status, they get locked up with some chick early in their life that ain't shit to begin with, right? So I'm not disagreeing with you, mm-hmm, that dudes should be taught something, should not be to figure that out. Because as I get older, as a dude gets older,
okay. What's a lady supposed to do other than date a guy that's older?
But hold on. Let me just finish this quick point.
Okay.
I think what's also important to understand is that typically what's valued in a dude from a woman's perspective increases as they get older, right? Because a woman is not necessarily looking at a dude to be a Greek god. They're not looking at a dude to be, right? They're looking for a layer of security, looking for a layer of protection, who can provide, who can be good fathers to children. And as a man develops and as he gets older, he has had more leadership roles. He has more money. He has more access to resources. Meanwhile, we're not looking for those things in a woman. I've looked at some videos that say in your 20s, a woman should focus on getting married, because the older that they get, the less valuable that they're.
So there's a few things there.
Yep.
As far as like this time period about having children and women being concerned about their eggs drying up, let's keep it real. Within our community, everybody, a large percentage, let me not just outside of wedlock.
Yeah.
So I don't really think that that's necessarily like a really solid, valid point when it comes to that. It makes sense like on paper, but realistically, what are people practicing? Because people aren't practicing that based on what's happening in their ovaries. That's just not what's happening. And in fact, what it is that it's more of a reaction to what's currently happening in your society. So if we're living in this Tinder culture, mm-hmm, the culture is to play the game that's set before you. So if my peers if I'm a 22-year-old young lady and my intention is to, find a guy who will maybe potentially build a future together, like depending on what your circle is, that you're kind of focused on that, because they are just like enjoying themselves and living like vicariously, and it's
slim pickings because you're in your prime, and because you're in your prime, you have many requirements, very high requirements. So there's a lot of pickings for women, in their 20s. It's just they don't consider the ones that they may eventually settle down with into their 30s because they're in their prime. They have the pick of the litter. Now you do have a Tinder where you can date from at home. You saw, I don't know if you noticed, but Bumble, you can video chat straight through Bumble now.
I'm hip to Bumble.
Yeah. So it's like you can be in the comfort of your own home. Not even have to go out. You can date at your leisure. Instagram, Facebook, you don't have to know the people. You can communicate with.
Right, but see, that's the point that I'm making is like it's so. I'm just saying like leading into. I think I would have just already would have been able to kind of like more latch onto what he's saying if he didn't start in high school. Because it's like you're talking about this girl like, oh, she was a thought in high school because she lost her virginity, and then it goes on, and then in college she did this. That's where I'm like, it sounds like you're like personally referencing someone that broke up with you in high school, and she was just like that.
So even if I can understand how you say that. We're told, figure it out, like do what you want, and I'm not saying life is before you just ride that carousel, in my opinion. Like there's women that I've interacted with and they're in their mid-20s and they're, remaining abstinent, celibate, or at least they tell me that, but they're remaining abstinent and celibate until they get into a long-term committed relationship. And I respect that. And then you get the far opposite, but the far opposite is what your goals are, and are you taking the necessary action steps in order to really close. Because we didn't even get into the retirement.
I know. I just wanted to kind of be like.
But it's good though, because we needed to level set real quick.
Right. Okay. Cool. All right.
She calls this till she finds the one in which her God has for her. She says she has to kiss many frogs to get to her prince. In this time, at this age, this lasts from about 27 to about 35. And in the process of these years, she may have 3 long-term boyfriends on average, and each lasting 35. But here, in this age range, is where it gets dirty. The time in between these relationships, she's single. 4 of those guys each year, when she calls herself being single, moderately speaking. It's in this area of life.
Way worse than that.
Yeah.
I think his math is off. That's not a thought. A thought is way worse.
You know what it is? You know what it is too? I think that he's talking to people that don't understand reality. Like, and I've understood reality so much. Like, even in the understanding that y'all like sex just as much as we do.
We're the other half. You can't have sex. You can't have heterosexual sex without having sex with a woman.
But let's not act like there's not a thought that like it as much. You cannot be visual in nature. Like, like you see on Instagram, the gray sweatpants picture. Y'all be loving that shit. The 6-pack, this, that, and the third. Like, quantify what that looks like on that perspective, from a female's perspective. But growing up, like, we're taught dudes are the dogs, we're the savages. Like, we're just out here just to do just that and the third. But, like, in my experiences, I think it's 50-50. I think y'all enjoy that, still negative connotations around being free.
Yeah, I think that's like literally what's being discussed here. I think that it would be more fair if it were more fair. If it were like 50-50. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, okay, God, this is a society. So if you're a single woman in a community, in an urban community where you're surrounded by your peers, probably those same people you went to high school with, probably that same guys you dated before prom, and you're still living in that community and you're still like cohabitating and coexisting them, I just don't think that he's really addressing the unsuccessful rate. I think it's more conditional. Like, okay, so did she what I'm just trying to get into the numbers. He said maybe she dated 12 guys.
Not a thought, right?
That's not a thought. That is not a thought. Is a hoe. That hoe over there. What he's describing is not a thought. So I don't think that his
for what he's described
is
what he's described from high school till now seems like everybody. Yeah. Like most people.
Yeah,
like
it just
most
seems
women.
like a very average, normal, unless you were like super conservative, I just think that that's what most people experience, right? You lost your virginity with this guy, and then by prom you're with somebody else. Well, that's high school. Like, that's nonsensical to even reference what you did in high school. You were a child, but then to continue on saying like, oh, well, she's dating these guys, and I want to know that what a thought does. It's the strategy, because a thought dates and has sex like everybody else does, but it's the strategy, it's the mentality behind it that makes you a hoe, not because and the intent, right? So I'm gonna need him to be a little more specific in this video.
Yeah. And it's still a very subjective term, right? Like there's a sliding scale of how you would define a thought. Like, you also might say a thought is someone
there's a hoe scale?
is someone who just dates for money, right? Like they're just a sugar baby. Like I think that's a thought as well.
Yeah.
They could have sex with 2 sugar daddies a year, which is less than the number that he's saying, but I still think it's a thought because it's the intent behind why you're doing it.
Right. And I think what it is that what makes a thought or a hoe is that you're using yourself. You are using yourself as a tool to accommodate or to accomplish something, to get something from someone, where this person is not thinking about getting married. That's not her goal. She's not even considering it. She's not thinking about it. She's hustling with herself. She's using herself to hustle. That's what a thought is. And like you said, it doesn't matter like the number or because then you'll have to go be circumstantial. So what if
I disagree with that.
She went through a phase where she liked thugs or dope boys or something like that.
She's a thought.
Well, okay, yeah. You're right.
Whoa, and
bad reference. I meant like, okay, so what if she went through a phase where she liked, I don't know, like really rich white kids, but those kids aren't actually interested in being with her. And so it's just like a phase. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it depends how often she used her insides in that relationship. In that time, that phase, I mean.
Well, I'm okay.
Because I think the number does matter, right? Like I don't think the 4 that sounds like it's normal, but it's if you add that over a decade, the numbers start to get up.
I think also if it's like very repetitive, like this.
You should if your goal is to be in you should figure it out. It shouldn't take you a decade to understand why you're not choosing correctly. Like the correct dudes, you know what I mean? But so to your point, it's intention, but I also think it's a number based too, because like you could just be trying to date, but your number is whatever. Whoops, pick a number, 20 a year. That's thought, in my opinion. Like it can get 20 a year, 20 sweating and pumping on top of you in one calendar year, different.
Yeah, that's a couple of months.
Yeah. All right, but let's keep going now, because I feel like we've only made it halfway.
It's good content. So.
Yeah, it's good content. Shout out to you, Black Ram. First time I come across your video.
Yeah.
It's entertaining.
Ram.
We don't agree with everything.
Right.
But it's entertaining.
It's good. It's good. It's juicy.
It's juicy.
Yeah,
it is.
Life where she racks up about 20 plus bodies at this age, not including the boyfriends. The boyfriends serve as a break. The boyfriends are just a break between carousel rides, a resting period of about a year or 2, and then she gets off of that rest and she's back onto the carousel. Again, the boyfriends are just carousel breaks. So then at this point, she's 36 years old and her total body count is 44. Moderately speaking. Of course, we know those whose number is exponentially more. Now, she gave all 44 of those guys, more than likely, the cucumber special. And by the way, she loved to kiss.
Oh, yeah. I like kissing.
And she will be kissing you with that mouth, and she will be kissing your kids on the cheek with that same mouth, too. After 44 cucumber specials. And I bet.
What's up, girl?
All right. So he's making a very valid point about when you do the math on people who are, well, it's about our society where we're a bunch of fuckers.
But that's because we're happy, you know?
Right, yeah,
we're living good.
Sure. But
there's no war.
on the flip side, if you're talking about how many cucumber specials she's given, okay, well, you know, what would be the equivalent? Let's call it the peach juicer.
Yeah, but this kind of goes back to what's valued between men and women culturally. This differs from culture to culture, right? If a dude is looking for the most untouched, potentially, right? So within that, what goes through his mind is this idea of, you know, because there's a lot of dudes, alpha dudes, you know, very possessive, and they feel like if you have been possessed an exponential amount of times, it thereby then devalues you. But it's not the same to be said what a woman is looking for in a dude. Generally in our culture, it is more accepted. And I'm not saying it's right, wrong. It's just from culture to culture.
But I think that where the real reality sets in is like where you need to address your own personal values and like what you're looking for.
Yeah.
It's like, so maybe you shouldn't be following that Playboy advice that your uncle so-and-so gave you about getting some as much as you can, because if you, by the time you really address how you feel about that, you yourself have probably been with enough women to recognize the behavior of a thought, to know that you've been with a thought or two, to know that you don't want to be with a thought. So you yourself have been thoughting, to be quite frank.
You don't like the double standard.
I don't like a guy that's like, oh, I don't want to be with a girl who's been with a bunch of guys. Okay, that's I think a lot of people feel that way ultimately, but like, you should probably start getting more serious in your relationships a lot younger. If you want to be with somebody who doesn't have experience like that. I found through my personal experience, I'm in my 30s now, early 30s, but I found that men don't really, late 20s to mid 30s. I think there's a major transition that happens in men's maturity through their life experiences.
When you say grow up, what do you mean?
I mean by like coming to conclusions or understandings within yourself that this is what I want. And this is what I want in a woman, as opposed to just saying, I want a woman, I want that woman, I want that one, I want that one, I want as many as I can, I want the best that I can find, you know, as opposed to like really diving and looking into the quality and hunting the whole herd, you know what I mean? Rather than being like, I think that's generally how things work in nature. Like wine gets better as it ages. We all fine tune who we are and what we want in life as we get older and through our own personal experience. So I think that, but also I think if she doesn't learn from her experiences and she continues on to do destructive things, then that's where we're talking about like the career thought and thus the retirement plan of a thought.
Yeah.